Have you ever dropped a handful of pennies into a jar without looking twice? What if one of those ordinary-looking coins could be worth more than a luxury mansion? It sounds impossible, yet one remarkable 1969 Lincoln penny without a mint mark has captured the attention of collectors with values reaching an astonishing $757,000 under the right circumstances. Before you assume every 1969 penny is a hidden fortune, stay with me, because one tiny detail can mean the difference between a single cent and a life-changing discovery. Every year, millions of Americans unknowingly spend old coins that collectors have searched decades to find. Some end up in vending machines. Others disappear into bankrolls forever. Imagine realizing that the coin you used to buy a cup of coffee could have paid for your retirement. That possibility is exactly why experienced collectors inspect every Lincoln penny before letting it leave their hands. The 1969 Lincoln cent without a mint mark was struck in Philadelphia. At first glance, it appears completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln faces to the right, while the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly on the reverse. Nothing about the design screams extraordinary. And that's exactly what makes the hunt so exciting. The greatest treasures often hide in plain sight. Now here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Most 1969 Philadelphia pennies are worth only a modest amount, but a tiny number possess characteristics that collectors dream about. Exceptional preservation, blazing original luster, rare striking quality, and especially dramatic mint errors can transform an everyday coin into one that commands extraordinary prices at auction. Suddenly, a penny becomes a headline. Think about that for a second. A single coin smaller than your thumb could compete with the price of a luxury sports car. That's enough to make anyone stop emptying their pockets so casually. Maybe those pennies aren't as boring as they look after all. So, how do you know whether your coin deserves another glance? Start by checking the date carefully. Make sure it reads 1969 and carries no mint mark beneath the date. Then, examine the surfaces under strong light. Look for sharp details, original color, and unusual features that appear different from ordinary circulation wear. Collectors also pay close attention to possible doubled designs or other genuine mint-made errors. But don't rush to celebrate just yet, because many damaged coins can fool inexperienced eyes. Here's the part that surprises many people. Cleaning your coin, even with good intentions, can dramatically reduce its value. That shiny penny may actually become far less desirable the moment it is polished. Sometimes doing absolutely nothing is the smartest decision you can make. Imagine opening an old family coin jar this weekend. Inside sits a forgotten 1969 Lincoln penny waiting quietly for someone who finally recognizes its potential. Will it be the rare discovery every collector hopes for? Maybe, maybe not. But you'll never know if you never look. History has a funny way of rewarding curiosity. Fortunes have been discovered in dresser drawers, inherited collections, and dusty coffee cans sitting untouched for decades. The next incredible story could begin with a single penny resting in your own home right now, patiently waiting for the moment someone realizes that extraordinary wealth sometimes arrives disguised as the smallest coin in America. Most people would walk right past it without a second thought. A worn 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark might look like nothing more than 1 cent in loose change. But what if I told you that one tiny coin has sparked dreams of life-changing wealth, with stories of examples valued as high as $778,000? Before you spend another old penny, you may want to look a little closer, because the next coin hiding in your pocket could completely change the way you see your spare change forever. In 1978, billions of Lincoln cents were struck for everyday commerce. The coins without a mint mark were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, where no mint mark was used on Lincoln cents during that era. Most of these coins remain worth only a few cents today, That sounds disappointing, doesn't it? But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Collectors do not pay extraordinary prices simply because a coin is old. They pay for rarity, outstanding preservation, and unusual minting errors that transform an ordinary coin into something almost impossible to replace. That is why one exceptional 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln cent can stand miles apart from millions of ordinary examples. Now imagine opening an old coffee can filled with pennies collected by your grandparents. It sounds almost too simple. Yet discoveries like this continue to happen. The difference between an ordinary coin and a remarkable one can be so subtle that many people unknowingly spend valuable pieces every single day. That thought alone has sent countless collectors searching through jars, drawers, and forgotten piggy banks across America. So what should you actually look for? Start with the overall condition. Coins showing brilliant original luster, sharp details, and almost no signs of circulation attract far more attention than heavily worn pieces. Then examine the surfaces under strong lighting. Watch for dramatic off-center strikes, doubled lettering, die cracks, or other genuine mint errors. These unusual characteristics can dramatically increase collector demand. But wait. Before you start planning your dream vacation, here's a quick reality check. If Abraham Lincoln suddenly appears to be wearing sunglasses, it's probably not a rare error. It's probably time to clean your glasses instead. Humor aside, authentication is the step that separates excitement from expensive mistakes. Never clean an old coin. Even gentle polishing can destroy the original surfaces collectors value most. A professionally graded coin provides confidence, establishes authenticity, and often determines whether a piece is worth hundreds, thousands, or far more. This is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Every year, collectors discover coins they overlooked for decades. Some were inherited. Others came from pocket change or forgotten collections sitting quietly in closets. Each discovery reminds us that remarkable treasures are not always locked inside museum displays. Sometimes they hide in the most ordinary places imaginable. So before another handful of pennies disappears into a cash register or coin-counting machine, take a closer look at every 1978 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. The odds may be small, but history has repeatedly shown that extraordinary finds often begin with ordinary moments. Your next penny may not just be another cent. It could become the conversation that changes your financial future, proving that incredible value sometimes arrives disguised as the smallest coin in America.
Have you ever dropped a penny into a jar without even looking at it? What if one of those ordinary-looking coins could be worth more than a luxury mansion? Imagine discovering that a single Lincoln penny sitting in an old coffee can, tucked away inside a forgotten dresser drawer, or hiding between your car seats could change your financial future forever. It sounds impossible, but stories like this are exactly why millions of Americans have started checking their pocket change more carefully than ever before. Today we're uncovering the mystery behind the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin surrounded by excitement, surprising discoveries, and headline-making values. Some reports and collector stories have mentioned astonishing prices reaching as high as $784,000 for extraordinary examples connected to rare characteristics. But before you rush to empty every coin jar in your house, there's something incredibly important you need to understand. The difference between an ordinary penny worth 1 cent and one worth a life-changing amount often comes down to tiny details that most people never notice. And one of those details might already be sitting in your home. Back in 1984, America was changing fast. Personal computers were entering homes. Music, movies, and technology were evolving at lightning speed. Yet every single day, billions of pennies continued passing quietly from one hand to another. Hardly anyone gave them a second glance. The United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents that year. Philadelphia struck coins without a mint mark, while Denver produced coins carrying the familiar D. For most Americans, these pennies were simply everyday money. They bought newspapers, candy bars, parking meters, and cups of coffee. Nobody imagined that decades later collectors would carefully inspect those same coins under magnification, searching for tiny clues that could separate an ordinary cent from an extraordinary treasure. Here's where the story becomes fascinating. When people hear the phrase "no mint mark," they often assume it means something is missing or that the coin is automatically rare. That's one of the biggest misunderstandings in coin collecting. For 1984 Lincoln cents produced in Philadelphia, having no mint mark is completely normal. Every genuine Philadelphia penny from that year was made exactly that way. So why all the excitement? Because hidden among billions of ordinary coins are a handful with unusual characteristics that collectors aggressively pursue. Those tiny differences have transformed otherwise common pennies into some of the most talked about modern Lincoln cents. Now imagine this. You walk into your garage on a Saturday morning planning to clean out old boxes. Inside one dusty container sits a glass jar filled with pennies collected over decades. You almost donate it without opening the lid. Then curiosity wins. What if? That's the question that has driven countless collectors. And surprisingly often, curiosity pays. One reason the 1984 Lincoln cent receives so much attention is because of one famous error known throughout the collecting community. It's called the doubled ear variety. At first glance, Lincoln appears perfectly normal. But under magnification, collectors can see a dramatic doubling around his ear, creating what looks almost like a second ear growing behind the first. Once you know what you're looking for, it's incredibly difficult to forget. Collectors have searched through millions upon millions of pennies hoping to find this remarkable variety. Most never do, but some have. And those discoveries continue fueling the dream that another one is still waiting inside circulation. Here's something that makes this story even more exciting. Many valuable coin discoveries don't happen in expensive collections inherited from wealthy relatives. They happen during ordinary moments. Someone empties a piggy bank. Someone receives change at the grocery store. Someone opens a forgotten envelope. Someone checks grandpa's toolbox. Life-changing discoveries rarely announce themselves in advance. They simply wait for someone patient enough to notice. Of course, not every 1984 penny without a mint mark is valuable beyond face value. In fact, the overwhelming majority remain worth only a few cents. That reality often disappoints beginners. But here's the funny part. Most people spend hours researching the value before they even look at the coin. It's a little like buying a lottery ticket and refusing to check the numbers. Sometimes the answer is already sitting in your hand. Condition also changes everything. Imagine two identical pennies struck on the same day. One spends decades bouncing through cash registers, vending machines, parking lots, and children's pockets, to become scratched, worn, and dull. The other somehow avoids circulation completely. Maybe it was saved inside a bankroll. Maybe it rested untouched in a collector's album for 40 years. Today, those two coins may have dramatically different values despite starting life side by side. Collectors call exceptional preservation mint state. Every tiny mark matters. Every scratch matters. Every original mint luster matters. That's why professional grading companies exist. Experts carefully examine coins under controlled lighting and high magnification, assigning grades that help determine market value. Sometimes moving up just one grade can increase a coin's value by hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Think about that for a moment. One tiny difference, almost invisible to the naked eye, can completely transform a coin's market price. Now let's address the number everyone wants to hear. $784,000. Whenever extraordinary auction prices circulate online, they're almost always connected to exceptionally rare circumstances. Perhaps the coin possesses a spectacular error. Perhaps it's the finest known example. Perhaps multiple determined collectors competed fiercely during bidding. Auction records often represent perfect storms rather than average market values. That's why experienced collectors always ask one question before celebrating. What makes this coin special? Without that answer, even the most exciting headline means very little. Here's where many people accidentally lose money. They clean their coins. It seems logical. A shiny penny must be worth more than a dirty one, right? Actually, the opposite is usually true. Professional collectors generally prefer original surfaces. Cleaning can create tiny scratches and permanently damage the coin's natural appearance, often reducing its value significantly. Imagine discovering a potentially valuable penny, polishing it until it sparkles, then learning you've erased much of what collectors wanted to see. That's a painful lesson many beginners learn only once. So if you think you've found something unusual, resist the temptation to make it look prettier. Leave it exactly as you found it. Now here's an interesting question. How many pennies have you handled during your lifetime? 10,000? 20,000? Maybe even 50,000? Now ask yourself another question. How many did you actually examine? Probably almost none. That's exactly why valuable discoveries continue happening today. People simply aren't paying attention. Every year, remarkable coins appear because someone finally slowed down long enough to look carefully. That possibility keeps the treasure hunt alive. The Lincoln cent itself carries incredible history. Since 1909, Abraham Lincoln has appeared on America's smallest circulating coin, surviving wars, economic crises, technological revolutions, and generations of change. Each penny tells two stories: the story of the nation and the story of every person who carried it. Maybe your 1984 penny bought someone's first baseball card. Maybe it traveled across all 50 states. Maybe it sat forgotten inside a military footlocker. Maybe it passed through hundreds of hands before arriving in yours. Coins silently witness history in ways almost no other everyday object can. Now imagine discovering that one of those silent witnesses also happens to be worth enough to transform your retirement plans. Suddenly, pennies don't seem quite so ordinary anymore. The collecting community continues growing because stories spread quickly. Someone discovers an overlooked variety. Someone inherits a forgotten collection. Someone finds an extraordinary error in circulation. These stories inspire thousands of new searches. Most searches end with ordinary coins. But every so often, someone wins. And that possibility keeps collectors looking. If you're checking a 1984 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, pay close attention to Lincoln's ear, the lettering, the date, the surfaces, and the overall condition. Use proper lighting. A simple magnifying glass can reveal details invisible to the naked eye. Patience beats speed every single time. Rushing causes mistakes. Careful observation creates discoveries. Here's something else many beginners overlook. Storage matters. Even an ordinary coin can develop damage from moisture, fingerprints, or improper handling. Oils from your skin slowly affect metal surfaces over time. Holding a potentially valuable coin by its edges instead of touching the faces may seem like a tiny habit. But tiny habits often protect big value. It's amazing how often fortunes depend on little decisions. One person spends a coin, another saves it. One person cleans it, another leaves it alone. One person ignores an unusual detail, another notices it. Years later, those small choices produce dramatically different outcomes. Success in coin collecting isn't always about luck. It's often about paying attention where everyone else looks away. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson hidden inside the 1984 Lincoln penny. Opportunity rarely announces itself with flashing lights. Sometimes opportunity disguises itself as the smallest coin in your pocket. As this story comes to an end, take one final look around your home. That change jar in the kitchen, the old cigar box in the attic, the forgotten piggy bank on the closet shelf, the coin envelope tucked inside a family photo album. Those ordinary places have surprised people before. They could surprise someone again. Will every 1984 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Absolutely not. But every valuable discovery begins with someone asking a simple question. What if this one is different? That single question has led collectors to uncover remarkable varieties, extraordinary errors, and coins worth far more than anyone imagined. So before another penny disappears into a cash register forever, take a closer look. Inspect it carefully. respect its history, understand its details. Because the next incredible discovery won't happen to the person who assumed every penny was ordinary. It will happen to the person who decided to look just 1 second longer. And if that unforgettable moment arrives, when an ordinary-looking 1984 Lincoln penny reveals an extraordinary secret hiding in plain sight, you'll understand why experienced collectors never underestimate the smallest coin in America. Sometimes history, opportunity, and unexpected fortune really do fit in the palm of your hand. Have you ever dropped a penny into a jar without looking at the date? Maybe you left one in your car's cup holder, or maybe one disappeared between the couch cushions years ago. Most people see a penny and think it is worth exactly 1 cent. But every once in a while, a seemingly ordinary coin shocks the collecting world and reminds us that appearances can be incredibly deceiving. Imagine discovering that a single Lincoln penny from 1991 could be connected to values reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. Before you spend another penny, take a closer look, because what you are about to learn could completely change the way you see the smallest coin in your pocket. The 1991 Lincoln cent without a mint mark is one of those coins that quietly circulates through America every day. Millions were made, and most remain worth only face value. That is exactly why collectors pay such close attention to the tiny details that separate an ordinary coin from an extraordinary one. Hidden among countless common examples are rare mistakes, exceptional conditions, and fascinating varieties that have turned simple pocket change into prized collectibles. Now, here is where things become truly interesting. You may have heard claims that a 1991 Lincoln penny without a mint mark is worth $791,000. That number certainly grabs attention. But the real story is even more fascinating because understanding why certain Lincoln cents command astonishing prices can help you recognize what actually matters when examining your own coins. Let's begin with the coin itself. The Lincoln cent has been an American icon since 1909. For generations, it has passed through the hands of students buying candy, parents paying for groceries, collectors searching bank rolls, and grandparents saving change in old coffee cans. By 1991, the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln had become one of the most recognized coin designs in the world. If your penny has no mint mark beneath the date, it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. During that period, Philadelphia cents typically carried no mint mark, while coins from Denver displayed a small D beneath the date. That tiny missing letter isn't an error. It simply identifies where the coin was made. So if every Philadelphia penny from 1991 lacks a mint mark, why are collectors excited? Because condition changes everything. Imagine two identical cars built on the same day. One has been driven for hundreds of thousands of miles through snow, rain, and rough roads. The other has been preserved in a climate-controlled garage since new. Which one would collectors chase? The answer is obvious. Coins work exactly the same way. The overwhelming majority of 1991 pennies entered circulation immediately. They jingled through cash registers, vending machines, laundromats, and piggy banks. Every scratch, every tiny hit, and every fingerprint slowly erased their original beauty. But a microscopic number survived with blazing original luster, razor-sharp details, and almost flawless surfaces. Those elite survivors are the coin's professional grading services reward with the highest mint state grades. And that is where values can rise dramatically. Here's something many people never realize. The difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth thousands of dollars may be almost invisible to the naked eye. A single tiny contact mark can reduce value dramatically. Slightly weaker strike details can matter. Even the brilliance of the original mint shine plays an important role. Think about that for a moment. A coin smaller than the size of a cookie can be judged under magnification more carefully than many luxury watches. Sounds a little crazy, doesn't it? Yet collectors gladly do exactly that. Now imagine opening an old family coin collection that has been untouched for 30 years. Inside are rolls of pennies wrapped by your grandfather. No one has looked through them since the early 1990s. Suddenly, finding a superbly preserved example no longer seems impossible. Stories like these happen more often than people think. Many valuable coins are discovered not because someone was searching for treasure, but because they simply became curious. Curiosity has created million-dollar collections. It has uncovered forgotten rarities. And it continues rewarding people willing to look just a little closer than everyone else. But condition is only part of the equation. Sharp-eyed collectors also search for mint errors. Errors happen when something unexpected occurs during the manufacturing process. They are not created after the coin leaves the mint. They happen during production itself, making them unique pieces of American minting history. Perhaps the most famous errors involve double designs, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, or dramatic die breaks. Some are subtle. Others are impossible to miss. Picture a machine producing billions of coins every year. Even with incredible precision, occasional mistakes are inevitable. And collectors love mistakes. That may be the only profession where people celebrate manufacturing errors. Imagine telling your boss, "Good news, I made a mistake today." Probably not the career advice anyone should follow. But inside the coin collecting world, the right mistake can become legendary. If a rare mint error appears on a 1991 Philadelphia Lincoln cent, its value may increase dramatically depending on its rarity, eye appeal, and demand among collectors. Now let's talk about the number that caught your attention. Values approaching hundreds of thousands of dollars are extraordinarily rare and are generally associated with unique coins, major mint errors, or historically important examples sold under exceptional circumstances. Headlines often highlight astonishing auction results because they capture attention, but they do not represent the value of every 1991 penny without a mint mark. That is actually good news. Why? Because knowing the difference protects you from unrealistic expectations while helping you recognize genuine opportunities. A collector who understands rarity makes better decisions than someone chasing every sensational headline. So how do you examine your own coin? Start with the date. Look carefully for 1991. Then confirm there is no mint mark beneath the date. Next, examine the surfaces under bright lighting. Rotate the coin slowly. Does the original mint luster still shine? Are Lincoln's hair details crisp? Are the lettering and date sharp? Does the coin appear unusually clean without harsh scratches or corrosion? Now inspect both sides for anything unusual. Look for doubling in the letters. Look for strange cracks running across the design. Look for areas where the design appears shifted. Look for missing elements or dramatic striking mistakes. Never clean the coin. That advice cannot be repeated enough. Many well-meaning owners accidentally destroy collectible value with household cleaners, polishing cloths, baking soda, toothpaste, or chemical dips. A cleaned coin often loses much of the premium collectors would otherwise pay. Imagine finding an antique painting and deciding to scrub it with kitchen soap. Exactly. Sometimes doing nothing is the smartest decision. If your coin appears exceptional or displays an unusual feature, consider having it evaluated by a respected professional grading service. Authentication provides confidence for both buyers and sellers while preserving the coin inside a protective holder. Now here's a question. How many pennies have passed through your hands during your lifetime? 5,000? 20,000? 100,000? Most people have handled enough coins to fill buckets, yet almost nobody pauses long enough to inspect them. That is what separates opportunity from routine. One person spends change automatically. Another person looks carefully. The difference takes only seconds. Collectors understand something powerful. Treasure rarely announces itself. It hides in ordinary places, inside dresser drawers, old cigar boxes, glass jars sitting on garage shelves, inherited collections tucked away in closets, bank rolls that have not been opened for decades. Sometimes the greatest discoveries begin with nothing more exciting than a dusty cardboard box. Imagine finding one this weekend. Imagine opening it. Imagine seeing rows of brilliant copper Lincoln cents untouched since the early 1990s. Would you look at them differently after today's story? Most people would. That simple shift in perspective has inspired countless collectors to begin searching. And every search teaches something new. Even if you never uncover an extremely valuable coin, you develop an appreciation for American history, craftsmanship, and the remarkable stories carried inside everyday pocket change. Each coin traveled through countless hands. It witnessed birthdays, family vacations, business deals, school lunches, holiday shopping. Perhaps it crossed the country dozens of times before reaching you. Now it waits for someone curious enough to notice it. Before you dismiss another penny as worthless, remember this. The marketplace rewards rarity, originality, demand, and exceptional preservation. Those qualities cannot be judged by date alone. They require patience, knowledge, and careful observation. The next time someone laughs because you're checking pennies, smile. History has shown that remarkable discoveries often begin with people willing to do what everyone else ignores. After all, every famous coin discovery was ordinary until someone recognized it wasn't. So before you empty that change jar into a counting machine, before you spend the pennies sitting in your kitchen drawer, and before you overlook the coins hidden inside an inherited collection, give them one careful examination. One coin could teach you something valuable. One coin could connect you with American history. One coin could become the beginning of a fascinating collecting journey. And every great discovery starts with a single decision to look a little closer than everyone else. Because sometimes the smallest coin in your pocket carries the biggest surprise of all. Have you ever reached into a pocket, opened an old coin jar, or dumped a handful of pennies onto a table without giving them a second thought? What if one of those ordinary-looking coins could completely change the way you think about money forever? Hidden among billions of common Lincoln cents is a coin that has captured the attention of collectors across America. It's the 1993 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Most are worth only 1 cent, but a tiny handful with the right characteristics have sold for astonishing prices, and stories of rare examples valued in the hundreds of thousands of dollars continue to fuel one of the greatest treasure hunts in modern coin collecting. Before you decide that every 1993 penny is a retirement plan, stay with me. The difference between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary one often comes down to details so small they can barely be seen with the naked eye. Miss one tiny clue, and you might spend a coin that collectors would eagerly fight to own. By the end of the story, you'll know exactly why this humble penny has become such an obsession, what separates the valuable pieces from the common ones, and why your next handful of change deserves a second look. In 1993, the United States was a different place. The internet was still a mystery to most families. Gas was inexpensive compared to today's prices. Millions of Americans carried cash every day, and pennies changed hands countless times from grocery stores to gas stations. The Philadelphia Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents that year, and because coins struck in Philadelphia traditionally carried no mint mark, every normal 1993 Philadelphia penny left the mint looking almost identical. That is exactly what makes this story so fascinating. When billions of nearly identical coins exist, the smallest mistake becomes incredibly important. Collectors aren't simply buying copper-colored metal. They're buying history. They're buying rarity. They're buying the story behind a manufacturing accident that was never supposed to happen. Imagine standing on the floor of the mint. Massive presses strike hundreds of coins every minute with incredible force. Every die must be perfectly aligned. Every blank planchet must be the correct size and composition. Every detail must be precise. But machines aren't perfect. Dies wear down. Tiny imperfections develop. Occasionally something unexpected slips through quality control. And that's where fortunes can begin. Here's something that surprises many people. The words "no mint mark" by themselves do not automatically make a 1993 penny valuable. Every regular Philadelphia Lincoln cent from 1993 was intentionally made without a mint mark. Yet countless online posts and sensational headlines have convinced people that every no mint mark penny is worth a fortune. The truth is much more interesting. Collectors pay extraordinary prices only for coins with exceptional rarity, outstanding preservation, dramatic mint errors, or unique die varieties. That's where excitement enters the picture. Now picture this. Two neighbors each own a 1993 no mint mark penny. They look almost identical across the kitchen table. One is worth 1 cent, The other might attract serious collector interest because of a spectacular error or because it survived in nearly flawless condition for more than 3 decades. That tiny difference changes everything. So what exactly are experienced collectors searching for? First comes condition. Professional grading companies evaluate coins using a detailed numerical scale. A penny that spent years rattling around in pockets usually shows scratches, worn lettering, dull surfaces, and countless tiny marks. Those coins remain common. But occasionally someone unknowingly stores a fresh penny away shortly after receiving it in change. Perhaps it slipped into a drawer and stayed there untouched. Maybe it sat inside a bank roll for decades. When such a coin emerges with blazing original luster and almost no imperfections, collectors take notice. The higher the certified grade climbs, the faster prices can rise. That brings us to the next clue. Mint errors. Errors are the rock stars of coin collecting. They're unexpected, dramatic, and impossible to recreate legally after the coin leaves the mint. Imagine discovering a penny struck off center so part of the design is missing, or a dramatic broad strike where the collar failed to hold the coin in place. Maybe a doubled strike created a ghost-like second image. Perhaps a die crack cuts dramatically across Lincoln's portrait, creating a feature collectors love to study. Each genuine error tells a story about the exact moment something unusual happened inside the mint. And here's where things become even more exciting. Some people have spent decades carrying valuable error coins without realizing it. They bought coffee, paid parking meters, tossed them into piggy banks. The coin looked strange, so they ignored it instead of investigating. How many remarkable coins have disappeared back into circulation forever? No one knows. That mystery keeps collectors searching every single day. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make. They clean their coins. It sounds logical. If something might be valuable, why not make it shiny? Because collectors don't want polished history. Cleaning creates microscopic scratches that permanently damage the original surface. A rare coin with beautiful natural toning can lose significant collector appeal after just a few seconds of rubbing with a cloth or dipping into cleaning chemicals. Think about it this way. Would you repaint a famous work of art because the colors looked old? Of course not. The same principle applies to collectible coins. If you believe you've found something unusual, leave it exactly as it is. Now here's a question. What if your penny looks perfectly ordinary? Don't dismiss it yet. Sometimes the most important details require magnification. Experienced collectors use quality lighting and magnifying tools to inspect lettering, dates, rims, and design elements. Tiny doubling, unusual die markers, or subtle striking characteristics can hide in plain sight. It's a little like detective work. Except instead of solving a mystery from a crime scene, you're uncovering clues left behind by minting equipment over 30 years ago. And that's exactly why so many people become fascinated with coin collecting. Every coin tells a story. Some stories are common. Others are unforgettable. Imagine opening an old family jar filled with pennies collected over decades. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than spare change. Then one coin catches your attention. The surfaces sparkle differently. The strike appears unusually sharp. Something feels different. You check it carefully. Then you check it again. Suddenly that dusty jar sitting on a shelf for years becomes the most interesting object in your home. That's the emotional roller coaster collectors experience every day. Hope, curiosity, excitement. Then comes research. And occasionally, a remarkable discovery. But here's something even more important than finding a valuable coin. Knowing how to verify it. The coin collecting world has grown enormously over the years, attracting passionate experts along with misinformation and unrealistic claims. Extraordinary price stories often spread rapidly online without explaining the complete context. Whenever you hear about a six-figure or even higher valuation, remember that auction results depend on several critical factors, including rarity, condition, certification, collector demand, and whether the coin possesses unusual characteristics that separate it from ordinary examples. Those details matter. In fact, they matter more than the date alone. Professional authentication provides confidence for both buyers and sellers. When collectors compete for exceptional coins, trusted certification helps establish authenticity and condition using recognized grading standards. That confidence can make an enormous difference. Imagine selling a potentially rare coin for pocket change because you assumed every penny was the same. Now imagine the opposite. Taking the time to learn, inspecting carefully, seeking professional evaluation when something truly stands out. Knowledge becomes the most valuable tool you own. Here's a funny thought. Most people treat pennies like unwanted passengers. They toss them into cup holders, couch cushions, and junk drawers as if they're trying to escape them. Meanwhile, dedicated collectors happily spend entire weekends searching through thousands of cents one by one. Who's the strange one? The person ignoring history, or the person searching for hidden treasure? Maybe both. But only one group occasionally finds surprises. As our story reaches its final chapter, think about how many millions of 1993 no-mint mark pennies still exist across America. They sit in forgotten coffee cans, inherited collections, old wallets, dresser drawers, piggy banks, and bank rolls waiting to be examined. Most will remain ordinary. Some will be beautiful examples preserved by chance. A few may display remarkable mint errors. And somewhere, perhaps at this very moment, an overlooked coin may be waiting for someone patient enough to notice what everyone else missed. That possibility is what keeps this hunt alive. Not guaranteed riches, not impossible dreams, but the simple reality that history often hides in the smallest places. The next time someone hands you change, don't rush to spend every penny without looking. Hold that 1993 Lincoln cent under the light for just a little longer. Examine the surfaces. Study the lettering. Look for anything unusual. Appreciate the craftsmanship behind a coin that has quietly traveled through American history for more than 3 decades. Because every extraordinary discovery begins the same way. Someone decided to pay attention when everyone else walked away. Your next penny may not buy a mansion. It may not send you on a luxury vacation. It may simply be worth 1 cent. But if you never look, you'll never know. And sometimes, the greatest opportunity isn't hidden inside a vault or locked behind a bank door. Sometimes it's sitting quietly in the palm of your hand, waiting for the one person curious enough to recognize that even the smallest piece of American history can hold a story far more valuable than its face value. Have you ever reached into your pocket, opened an old jar of pennies, or emptied a forgotten coin collection onto the kitchen table without realizing one tiny copper-colored coin could completely change your financial future? Imagine discovering that a common-looking 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark might be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars under the right circumstances. It sounds impossible, yet stories like this have fueled the dreams of collectors across America for generations. Before you spend another penny, you may want to look a little closer, because what appears ordinary at first glance could be hiding an extraordinary secret. Most people think valuable coins are always ancient, made of silver or gold, or locked away inside museum displays. The truth is often much more surprising. Some of the most talked about treasures in modern coin collecting began their lives exactly where every other penny did. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, vending machines, and countless pockets before someone finally noticed that one tiny detail made all the difference. Now imagine this. A family is cleaning out a grandparent's home after decades. They discover an old coffee can filled with pennies collected over the years. At first, nobody pays much attention. After all, they're just pennies, right? But curiosity wins. They begin sorting through the dates. Wheat cents appear. Memorial cents appear. Then they notice a bright-looking 1995 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. At first, it seems completely ordinary. But after a closer inspection, questions begin to appear. Could this be one of the rare varieties collectors search for every single day? That's where the story becomes fascinating. The 1995 Lincoln penny was struck during a period when billions of cents were produced. Philadelphia alone manufactured enormous quantities of these coins, and unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, Philadelphia circulation pennies of that year carried no mint mark. That means every standard Philadelphia 1995 penny naturally has no mint mark. On its own, that doesn't make it rare. In fact, millions still exist today. So why are collectors willing to pay astonishing amounts for certain examples? Because sometimes perfection meets rarity. Sometimes an unusual mint error survives. Sometimes a coin receives an exceptional grade that almost no other example can match. And occasionally, all of those factors come together in one remarkable coin. This is where excitement begins replacing skepticism. Imagine standing in line at a coffee shop. The cashier hands you a few pennies in change. Would you even glance at them? Most people wouldn't. They would drop them into a cup holder or leave them forgotten in a drawer. Yet experienced collectors know that history has a funny way of hiding treasures in plain sight. Here's a question. When was the last time you actually looked at the pennies sitting around your house? Exactly. That simple question has inspired thousands of Americans to start searching. The Lincoln cent itself carries an incredible legacy. Introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, it became the first regularly circulating American coin to feature a real historical figure. Over the decades, the design became one of the most recognized symbols of everyday American life. Millions of children saved Lincoln cents in piggy banks. Millions of parents dropped them into jars. Millions more disappeared into couch cushions, forgotten until years later. That ordinary journey is exactly what makes extraordinary discoveries possible. Now, let's talk about value. From time to time, reports circulate about remarkable 1995 Lincoln pennies selling for staggering prices, with extraordinary examples associated with values approaching hundreds of thousands of dollars, including figures around $795,000. These eye-catching numbers are generally connected to exceptionally rare circumstances, such as unique mint errors, one-of-a-kind characteristics, or coins graded at the absolute highest levels by leading authentication services. They do not represent the value of a typical 1995 penny, but they demonstrate just how dramatically rarity and condition can influence a coin's market price. That difference is everything. Think about two identical-looking houses standing side by side. One has hidden structural damage. The other has been perfectly preserved for decades. From the street, they appear almost identical, but their values couldn't be more different. Coins work the same way. Tiny differences invisible to the average eye can create enormous differences in value. Now here's something that surprises many beginners. Condition matters just as much as rarity. Collectors use professional grading systems that examine every tiny detail. They look for original mint luster, sharp design features, clean surfaces, minimal contact marks, and outstanding eye appeal. The closer a coin remains to the moment it left the mint, the greater its potential value. That means the penny rattling around loose with keys, screws, and paper clips probably isn't helping itself. Coins tell stories. Every scratch tells one. Every fingerprint tells another. Every nick is another chapter added over decades of circulation. But occasionally, a coin somehow escapes all of that. It's almost like time simply forgot it existed. Now imagine opening an old coin roll that has remained sealed for 30 years. Inside are bright red Lincoln cents that look almost brand new. Your heart starts beating a little faster. Could one of these become the next remarkable discovery? Collectors live for moments exactly like that. But the story becomes even more interesting. Not every valuable 1995 penny is valuable because of perfect preservation. Some become famous because something went wrong during production. Coin errors have fascinated collectors for generations because they're accidents the mint never intended. Perhaps the die shifted. Perhaps lettering appears doubled. Perhaps striking pressure created unusual characteristics. Perhaps another unexpected mistake slipped past quality control. These unusual coins immediately become conversation pieces. Imagine owning something the United States Mint never planned to create. That's part of the magic. Here's something funny. People spend hours searching for perfect products at stores. Coin collectors? They're often hoping the factory made a mistake. Only in coin collecting can an accident become a treasure. Now before you race to the nearest penny jar, remember something important. Patience beats excitement. Many people convince themselves every unusual coin must be worth thousands. Reality says otherwise. Learning the details separates successful collectors from disappointed dreamers. Start by examining the date carefully. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Study the lettering. Inspect the reverse design. Use proper lighting. A simple magnifying glass can reveal details invisible to the naked eye. Never clean the coin. That's worth repeating. Never clean the coin. It might seem logical to polish away years of dirt, but cleaning almost always reduces collectible value. Professional buyers want originality, not shine created by household cleaners. Imagine discovering a rare painting in your attic. You wouldn't scrub it with kitchen soap. Treat rare coins the same way. Now here's where suspense enters the picture. Suppose you've found something unusual. Perhaps the surfaces look exceptional. Perhaps the strike appears unusually sharp. Perhaps you notice doubling you haven't seen before. What comes next? This is the moment where many people make costly mistakes. Instead of assuming life-changing wealth, experienced collectors seek professional authentication. Independent grading companies examine authenticity, condition, and important characteristics before assigning an official grade. That small plastic holder containing a professionally certified coin often becomes the difference between uncertainty and confidence. Because buyers trust verified information. Without it, many remarkable discoveries remain only hopeful guesses. Now imagine receiving that long-awaited grading result. You slowly open the package. Your hands shake slightly. You see the certification. Sometimes opportunity looks like loose change. Sometimes it hides inside forgotten collections. Sometimes it waits quietly inside an old cigar box for decades. And sometimes it rewards the person willing to pay attention while everyone else walks past. That's a lesson far bigger than coin collecting. Success often belongs to those who notice what others ignore. Think about that the next time someone says, "It's just a penny." Maybe. Or maybe it's history. Maybe it's craftsmanship. Maybe it's a rare mint variety. Maybe it's an incredible survivor preserved against impossible odds. Or maybe it's simply the beginning of a fascinating journey into one of America's most rewarding hobbies. Because here's the truth. Even if your 1995 Lincoln penny isn't worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, searching teaches something valuable. You become more observant, more patient, more curious, more connected to American history. Every coin becomes a tiny time capsule that traveled through countless hands before reaching yours. Who carried it first? A teacher buying coffee? A soldier returning home? A child purchasing candy? A grandfather saving change after work? We'll never know. Yet every coin silently carries those forgotten stories. Perhaps that's why collectors rarely stop after finding their first interesting penny. The thrill isn't only about money. It's about discovery. It's about possibility. It's about opening another roll, checking one more date, looking just a little closer than everyone else. Because somewhere across America tonight, someone is unknowingly dropping a potentially valuable coin into a tip jar. Someone else is cashing in an inherited collection without realizing what was inside. And somewhere, another careful collector is making a discovery that changes everything. It won't glow. It won't make a sound. It will simply wait for someone observant enough to recognize its importance. So before you spend another 1995 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, give it the attention it deserves. Examine it carefully. Compare it with trusted references. If it appears unusual or exceptionally well preserved, consider having it authenticated by a reputable grading service. Most examples are worth only face value or a small premium, but the rare exceptions are exactly why millions of Americans continue searching through jars, rolls, and inherited collections every single year. Because fortunes have always favored those willing to look beyond appearances. And perhaps, just perhaps, the next unforgettable discovery isn't sitting in a museum, a bank vault, or a millionaire's collection. Perhaps it's already sitting quietly in your pocket, waiting for you to notice what everyone else overlooked.